In war, you see things that change you forever. The Taliban, homemade explosives, things that make combat almost seem normal. I'm Captain David Morrison, call sign Ghost, a former member of Navy SEAL Team 6. Before I begin my story, don't forget to subscribe to the Delta War Stories channel. I served in 17 countries across 4 continents. I did things in places that don't officially exist, things I can't talk about. But what happened in October 2009 in the Korengal Valley, what we found in those caves, are things I need to tell before I die. Because the official records are lies. The post-operation report is fiction. And the true stories of the 3 people who entered that cave system with me deserve to be told. It started with a routine high-value target operation. We've been tracking a Taliban commander named Khalid Mashwani for 6 weeks. This guy wasn't your typical local insurgent. He had connections to Al-Qaeda, training from Pakistani ISI, and according to our intelligence, he was planning something big. Multiple credible sources indicated he was coordinating a major attack on forward operating base Blessing. We're talking potential mass casualty event, suicide bombers, coordinated assault, the whole nightmare scenario. Our mission was simple on paper: locate Mashwani, capture or kill, extract any intelligence materials, get out before dawn. Standard direct action operation. My team consisted of 4 operators. Myself as team leader. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, our CIA liaison and the smartest person I've ever worked with. She spoke Mandarin, Pashto, Arabic, and Dari fluently. Had a PhD in Middle Eastern Studies from Georgetown and could read ancient Persian like you read a menu. Then there was Sergeant James Patterson, call sign Bull. Demolitions expert from Houston, built like a brick wall, could calculate blast radius in his head faster than most people could use a calculator. And finally, Corporal Miguel Santos, our medic. 25 years old, first deployment, but the kid had hands steadier than a surgeon and a calm under fire that veterans twice his age envied. October 17, 2009. We inserted via Hello at 0200 hours, 6 clicks north of our target location. The landing zone was cold, no enemy contact, just the eternal silence of the Afghan mountains at night. The air was thin up there, 11,000 feet elevation, and cold enough that your breath crystallized instantly. The mountains rose around us like the bones of dead gods, jagged and indifferent. The Korengal Valley had earned its nickname, the Valley of Death. More American soldiers had died per capita there than anywhere else in Afghanistan. The terrain was brutal, the enemy entrenched, and every ridge, every boulder, every tree could hide a fighter who'd been waging war since before you were born. We moved through the darkness using night vision, following a goat trail that wound between rock formations. Chen was on point, consulting her GPS and the intel package we'd received from JSOC. The target compound was supposed to be 3 kilometers east, a small cluster of buildings tucked into a valley fulled. Mashwani allegedly used it as a waypoint, never staying more than a night or 2, always moving. But our signals intelligence had pinpointed him there within the last 12 hours. Cell phone metadata, confirmed by a local asset who'd seen his vehicle. This was our window. Bull moved behind Chen, scanning left, his .48 Malawian Quachas light machine gun ready. I was third in the stack, and Santos brought up the rear, covering our 6. We moved in practiced silence, hand signals only, weapons ready but fingers off triggers. Foreshadows flowing through a landscape that had seen armies come and go for thousands of years. Alexander the Great had fought in these mountains. The British had died here 3 times. The Soviets had bled here for a decade. And now we were here, thinking we were different, thinking our technology and training made us superior to the land itself. It took us 90 minutes to reach the observation point overlooking the target compound. We set up behind a rock formation and glassed the buildings through thermal optics. 3 structures, mud brick construction, typical of the area. Smoke rising from one building indicated habitation. We counted 4 heat signatures inside, 2 more in an adjacent structure. 6 total, consistent with Mashwani's usual security element. But something felt wrong. I couldn't articulate it, just that crawling sensation on the back of your neck that every combat veteran learns to trust. The intuition that says danger, that says trap, that says aboard. "Ghost, we have a problem," Chen whispered, lowering her optics. "The compound layout doesn't match the intelligence photos. That third building on the south side? That wasn't there in the satellite imagery from last week." She was right. The structure she indicated was clearly newer, walls still fresh looking, no weathering. Someone had built it recently, built it fast. That didn't fit the pattern. Mashwani was careful, paranoid even. He didn't construction projects at safe houses. He used them and abandoned them. "Could be a workshop," Bull suggested. "Bomb making maybe. IED factory. Or a trap," Santos said quietly. "They know we're hunting him. What if this whole thing is bait?" I considered aborting. We had the authority. Mission commanders were given latitude for on-ground assessment. If something felt wrong, we could call it off, extract, wait for better intelligence. But Mashwani was slippery. If we let this opportunity pass, it might be months before we got another shot. An FOB blessing was vulnerable. If he was planning what we thought he was planning, waiting could cost American lives. We adapt, I decided. Chen, take Santos and approach from the north. Bol and I will come from the south. We clear the structure simultaneously. If Mashwani's there, we grab him. If it's a trap, we're ready for it. Either way, we go in smart. We split up, circling the compound from opposite directions. The terrain provided decent cover, boulders, and scrub vegetation, patches of shadow where the moonlight didn't reach. Chen and Santos disappeared into the darkness, moving like ghosts themselves. Bull and I advanced on the southern approach, weapons up, scanning constantly. The night was absolutely still. No wind, no animal sounds, nothing. Just silence so complete it felt oppressive, like the world was holding its breath. We reached the perimeter wall without incident. Old stone, about chest high, easy to vault. Bull covered while I went over, then I covered while he followed. We stacked up on the first building, and I signaled Chin on the radio with 2 clicks. She responded with 2 clicks. Everyone in position. I counted down from 3 on my fingers. 3, 2, 1. Breach. Bull kicked the door, and we flowed inside, weapons up, scanning corners. Empty. The building was completely empty. No furniture, no supplies, no people. Just bare walls and a dirt floor. The thermal signatures we'd seen were gone, vanished like they'd never existed. Impossible. Thermals don't lie. Heat doesn't disappear in 90 seconds. North building clear, Chen's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Ghost, something's wrong. No one here. No signs of habitation at all." We regrouped in the compound center, scanning the surrounding ridges for ambush. This was exactly how you got killed in Afghanistan. Lured into a kill zone, then hit from elevated positions with no escape. But the ridges were empty. No movement, no muzzle flashes, no incoming fire. Just silence and the cold mountain air and the growing certainty that we'd walked into something we didn't understand. "The third building," Chin said, pointing to the new construction. "That's the only place we haven't checked." The structure looked wrong up close. The walls weren't mud brick like I'd thought. They were stone, massive stone blocks fitted together without mortar. And they weren't new. Looking closer, I could see weathering, ancient weathering, the kind that takes centuries. But from a distance, in the dark, it had looked new because the stones were clean, like someone had excavated them recently. Brushed away dirt and debris to reveal what was underneath. "This doesn't make sense," Bull muttered. "Why would Taliban be digging up old ruins?" "They wouldn't," Chin said. She was running her hands over the stone, examining markings carved into the surface. These inscriptions, they're pre-Islamic. This structure is at least 1500 years old, maybe older. This is archaeological, not military. Can we discuss ancient history later? Santos asked nervously. We're exposed here. We need to either clear this building or abort and extract. He was right. We were standing in the open, vulnerable, with no clear understanding of what we'd walked into. But Chen was transfixed by the stones, her fingers tracing the carvings. In the green glow of my night vision, I could see her face, and she looked excited and terrified at the same time. These symbols, she whispered, they're warnings. Do not enter. Death waits below. The guardians sleep, but they wake hungry. Ghost, we need to leave. Right now. But it was too late. The ground beneath us shifted. Not an earthquake, something else. A vibration, a resonance, like some massive machinery activating deep underground. The stone building began to sink, the entire structure descending into the earth as if it had been built on a massive elevator. We scrambled back, weapons up, watching in disbelief as the building lowered itself into a shaft that shouldn't exist, revealing stone steps leading down into darkness so absolute it seemed to swallow light itself. Command, this is Ghost Actual, I transmitted. We have encountered an unknown structure at target location. Appears to be entrance to underground complex. Requesting guidance. How copy? Static. Nothing but static. Our comms were dead. All of them. Satellite radio, tactical radios, even our emergency beacon. Every electronic communication device we carried had gone silent simultaneously. That wasn't interference. That was something else. Something that didn't want us calling for help. Geiger counter, Chin said urgently. Santos pulled the device from his pack and activated it. The reading spiked immediately, but not in a pattern consistent with nuclear material. The radiation was fluctuating, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed almost organic, like a heartbeat, like something alive was breathing radiation. We should go down, Bull said, and we all looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Think about it. Mashwani lured us here for a reason. The intelligence was too perfect, too easy. He wanted us to find this place, which means whatever's down there, he wants us to encounter it. And if he wants us down there, maybe we should find out why. Find out what he knows that we don't. It was insane logic, but it made a kind of sense. We'd been manipulated, drawn here deliberately. Turning back now meant we'd never understand what this was, never know what Mashwani had discovered or how he planned to use it. And if there was a weapon down there, if this was some kind of ancient arsenal that Taliban had found, we needed to know. Needed to report it. Needed to ensure it didn't get used against our people. We go down, I decided. But we stay tight, we stay smart. And at the first sign this is more than we can handle, we extract. Understood. Everyone nodded. Santos distributed chemical light sticks. We cracked them, green glow in the darkness, and began our descent into what would become the worst 36 hours of my life. The steps were worn smooth by countless feet over countless centuries. The walls on either side were carved with more warnings, more symbols that Chin quietly translated as we descended. Turn back. They hunger. Stone does not die. Fire does not kill. The guardians protect what must not be found. The temperature dropped as we descended. Not gradually, but in distinct layers, like walking through invisible walls of cold. My breath came in white clouds, then in crystals that tinkled as they fell. The radiation readings spiked and dropped in that same rhythmic pattern. And beneath it all, below the range of conscious hearing, I could feel a vibration. Deep, subsonic, felt more than heard. Like standing next to massive machinery, or like being near something enormous that was breathing. We descended for what felt like an hour, but my watch said was only 7 minutes. Time felt wrong down there, stretched and compressed simultaneously. The steps ended at a chamber, circular, maybe 40 feet across. The walls were smooth stone, but they glowed faintly with a phosphorescent light that had nothing to do with our chemical sticks. Veins of some mineral ran through the rock, pulsing with that same organic rhythm we'd felt in the radiation. And in the center of the chamber, set into the floor, was a door. Not wooden, not metal. Stone carved with such precision that you couldn't slide paper between the door and its frame. Covered entirely in symbols that seemed to shift and writhe in the phosphorescent glow. "Oh no," Chen breathed. "Oh no, this is bad. Ghost, these symbols, they're not just warnings. They're a containment protocol. This isn't protecting something inside. It's keeping something inside from getting out." "Like a prison?" Santos asked. "Like a tomb," Chen corrected. "And we're standing in the antechamber." That's when our night vision devices died. All 4 units simultaneously. Just went black, no warning, no malfunction indicators. And in the darkness, in the phosphorescent glow of the chamber, we saw movement. Shadows that moved independently of any light source. Shapes that formed and dissolved at the edges of vision. And then we heard it. A voice, not speaking any language I recognized, but somehow conveying meaning directly into our minds. An ancient intelligence, vast and malevolent, stirring from eons of sleep. "You should not have come here," the voice said, though it didn't say it in words, just impressed the concept directly into our consciousness. "You have woken us, and now we are hungry." The stone door began to open. The stone door didn't swing open like a normal door. It dissolved. The solid rock simply ceased to exist, particles breaking apart into dust that hung suspended in the air, glowing with that same phosphorescent light. And beyond the doorway, we could see into a chamber so vast that our lights couldn't reach the far walls. A space that shouldn't exist this deep underground, carved from the living mountain by methods that predated modern engineering by millennia. The voice in our heads grew stronger, not louder but more present, like it was pressing against the inside of our skulls. "So long, so very long since warm blood walked these halls. You do not understand what you have disturbed, what you have awakened." "Weapons ready," I whispered, though whispering seemed pointless when something could speak directly into your mind. We formed a defensive square, each covering a direction, and moved toward the opening. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, to run, to get my team out of this place. But curiosity and duty warred with fear. We needed to understand what this was, needed to report it, and some stubborn part of me refused to let fear make tactical decisions. The chamber beyond was circular, maybe 200 feet in diameter. The walls rose up into darkness beyond the reach of our lights, suggesting a ceiling that might be 100 feet above us or might not exist at all. The floor was smooth stone, inlaid with metallic veins that formed geometric patterns, circles within circles, symbols within symbols. And they were glowing, pulsing with light that moved through the patterns like blood through veins, converging on the center of the chamber where something stood. At first, I thought it was a statue, a massive humanoid figure, maybe 15 feet tall, carved from the same stone as the chamber walls. But then it moved. Just a slight shifting of weight, a minute adjustment of posture. And I realized with sick certainty that this thing was alive. Had always been alive. Just waiting. Sleeping, standing up for God knows how many centuries. The entity was humanoid only in the most basic sense. 2 arms, 2 legs, a torso, a head. But the proportions were wrong. The arms were too long, reaching nearly to the ground. The legs were bent backward at the knee, like a bird's legs. The torso was broad and thick, covered in what looked like armor but might have been its actual skin, layered plates of stone or something that resembled stone. And the head. God, the head was the worst part. No face. Just a smooth surface of rock with 3 vertical cracks that might have been eyes, or might have been wounds, or might have been something else entirely. And they were glowing. Dim red light leaked from those cracks like looking into a furnace. "Pre-Islamic guardian construct," Chun whispered, her voice tight with terror and fascination. The texts mention them. Protectors left by civilizations that existed before recorded history. Before humans built cities. Before we discovered fire. They're supposed to be myths. Stories told to explain ancient ruins. That thing doesn't look like a myth, Bull said, his machine gun trained on the entity's center mass. That looks solid. That looks real. The entity's head turned toward us. Slowly, with the grinding sound of stone on stone, those 3 glowing cracks focused on our position, and I felt its attention like physical weight, like being examined by something so far beyond human that we barely registered as alive to it. We were insects. Bacteria. Nothing. You carry weapons of fire and metal, the voice said in our heads. Toys. Children playing at war. You do not understand the true nature of conflict. The eternal war. The war that began when the universe learned to think and will end when thinking ceases. We don't want conflict, I said aloud, trying to project authority I didn't feel.
We're leaving. We didn't mean to disturb you. Just let us go, and we'll seal this place. No one else will come here. The entity laughed. Not with sound, but with feeling. Amusement and cruelty and ancient hunger all mixed together, flooding our minds. You think you have a choice?
You opened the seal. You broke the containment. The protocols are void, and we are so very hungry. It moved, faster than anything that size should move. One moment standing in the chamber's center, the next covering half the distance to our position in a single bound. We opened fire instinctively, for weapons firing simultaneously, hundreds of rounds pouring into the entity's mass. I saw impacts, saw chips of stone flying from its body. Bull's machine gun chewed into its torso, Santos and Chin fired controlled bursts at the head, and I targeted the joints, looking for weak points. The entity didn't stop, didn't slow, barely seemed to notice we were shooting it. Stone regenerated as fast as we damaged it, chips flying away but the mass beneath remaining intact. It covered the remaining distance in 2 more bounds, and suddenly it was among us. A massive stone hand swept through our formation like we were toys. Santos went flying, hitting the wall 20 feet away with a sickening crack. Bull tried to sidestep, but the entity's other hand caught him across the chest, sending him sprawling. Chen and I scattered in opposite directions, still firing, but it was useless. Completely useless. Santos, I screamed, running toward where he'd fallen. The kid was moving, thank God, pushing himself up from the stone floor. Blood ran from his nose and mouth, and he was holding his ribs, but he was alive. I grabbed his arm, hauling him to his feet. Can you move? Yeah, he gasped. Broken ribs. Maybe punctured lung. But I can move. Bull was back on his feet, backing away from the entity while firing short bursts. Rounds aren't doing shit. We need explosives. He dropped his machine gun, letting it hang on its sling, and pulled out a thermite grenade. Chen. Frag out. He pulled the pin and threw. The grenade landed at the entity's feet and detonated. Thermite burns at 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt through steel, hot enough to turn stone into slag. The white-hot chemical reaction engulfed the entity's lower body, and for a moment, I thought we'd found a solution. The stone was glowing red, beginning to melt. The entity's legs were losing cohesion, starting to collapse. But then the entity did something impossible. It absorbed the heat, drew it into itself like breathing. The thermite's glow dimmed, the temperature dropped, and the entity's legs re-solidified, stronger than before. Now they glowed from within with that same red light we'd seen in its eyes. Like we'd fed it. Like we'd made it stronger. Oh, that's bad, Jin said. That's really bad. It's a thermovoric construct. It feeds on heat. Every bullet we fire generates heat on impact. Every explosion makes it stronger. Then how do we fight it? Bull demanded, pulling back toward our position. We don't, Chun said simply. We run. These things were designed to be unkillable. That's the point. They're eternal guardians. You don't destroy them. You avoid them. The entity advanced on us again, moving with more speed now, more confidence. Like it was warming up. Like the fight was waking it fully from its ancient sleep. You understand now, it said in our minds. You cannot harm me. I am stone and fire and will. I have stood for 10,000 years. I will stand for 10,000 more. But you, soft things of meat and fluid, you will end. Here. Now. We ran. No shame at it, no hesitation. When fighting is impossible, survival means retreat. We bolted for the doorway we'd entered through, Santos leaning on me, Bull covering our withdrawal with his machine gun, Chun leading the way. The entity followed, each footfall shaking the chamber, echoing like thunder in the enclosed space. We made it through the doorway into the antechamber where we'd first entered. The stairs leading up were on the far side, maybe 50 feet away. Freedom. Extraction. Survival. But the entity appeared in the doorway behind us, filling the entrance with its massive form. Those red eyes fixed on our position. Bull, seal the doorway. I shouted. Collapse it. Bull was already moving, pulling out shaped charges from his demo pack. I need 30 seconds. Keep that thing busy. Keep it busy. Right. Keep a 15-foot stone monster busy with weapons that only made it stronger. But we tried. Santos, despite his injuries, grabbed his rifle and started firing at the entity's head, aiming for those glowing cracks. Chin fired controlled bursts at its joints. I went for suppression, firing full auto to force it to focus on me. Give Bull the time he needed. The entity swatted at us like we were flies. A stone hand caught Chin's rifle, ripping it from her grasp and sending it skittering across the floor. She rolled away, pulling her sidearm. Santos took another hit, this time from a backhand that sent him sprawling again. I saw him cough blood, saw him struggle to breathe. His lung was definitely punctured now. He needed a hospital, needed a medic. But the nearest medical facility was 6 kilometers away and probably wouldn't believe what we'd encountered even if we made it back. Done. Bull shouted. Fire in the hole. Move, move, move. We ran for the stairs. Bull hit the detonator. The shaped charges detonated in sequence, precise cutting charges designed to drop buildings, to collapse tunnels, to seal entrances. The doorway blew inward, tons of stone collapsing into the opening, creating a wall of rubble between us and the entity. Dust filled the antechamber, choking and blinding. We stumbled up the stairs, coughing, gasping, pulling Santos between us. We'd gone maybe 20 steps when we felt the vibration. Deep, rhythmic pounding. The entity was coming through the rubble. Not around it. Not over it. Through it. Literally pushing through solid stone like it was water. Because it was stone. Because it could merge with rock, move through it, become it. The doorway we'd collapsed wasn't an obstacle. It was barely an inconvenience. Faster. I urged, half carrying Santos now. The kid was fading, his breathing shallow and rapid. Shock setting in. Internal bleeding probably. He needed treatment in the next hour or he'd die. We all would die if we didn't get out of these caves. The stairs seemed longer going up than they had coming down. Time distortion, adrenaline, fear, all playing tricks on perception. But we climbed, lungs burning, muscles screaming. Behind us, the pounding grew louder. The entity was gaining. Stone could not tire. Stone did not need to breathe. Stone would chase us to the surface and beyond if necessary. We burst out into the compound where we'd started. The night air felt like ice after the heat of the caves, but it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever felt. Above us, stars. Real stars. Not phosphorescent stone. Not glowing veins of unknown minerals. Just honest cold light from suns so distant their radiance took centuries to reach us. The entrance. Chin gasped. We have to collapse the entire entrance shaft. Seal it permanently. Bull was already setting up his remaining charges, working with practiced efficiency despite exhaustion. This is everything I have left. All my C4, all my det cord, every charge. If this doesn't seal it, we're out of options. Santos was unconscious now, his face pale, lips blue. I checked his pulse. Thready and rapid. He was dying. We need to evac now. Santos needs a hospital. 30 seconds, Bull said, wiring the charges. Just give me 30 seconds. We didn't have 30 seconds. The entity emerged from the stairway, stone body flowing up through the opening like liquid rock solidifying into deadly form. It was fully awake now. No more slow movements. No more hesitation. Just pure predatory focus. Those red eyes locked onto us, and it charged. Bull. I screamed. Done. Fire in the hole. He hit the detonator without another word. The explosion was massive. Every ounce of explosive Bull had remaining, all detonating simultaneously. The entire entrance shaft collapsed, stone and dirt and ancient construction falling in on itself, creating a crater 50 feet deep. The entity was caught in the collapse, buried under thousands of tons of rock. For a moment, everything was dust and debris and the echoing roar of destruction. Then silence. Absolute silence. Just the ringing in our ears and the sound of our own ragged breathing. We stared at the crater, weapons up, waiting. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Nothing moved. Nothing emerged. The entity was buried. Trapped. Sealed beneath rock and rubble and the weight of the mountain itself. Did we get it? Bull asked, his voice shaky. We buried it, Chin said. That's not the same as killing it. Those things don't die. They just wait. It's buried now, but eventually, it'll dig its way out. Could take years. Could take decades. But it will emerge again. Then we need to report this, I said. Get command to permanently seal the site. Concrete. Steel. Whatever it takes. Make sure no one ever opens it again. We carried Santos between us, moving as fast as we could back toward our extraction point. The kid was barely breathing now, his pulse so weak I could barely feel it. We'd radioed for emergency evac the moment our comms came back online, the moment we were far enough from the caves that the interference stopped. A Black Hawk was inbound, ETA 8 minutes. Santos had maybe 10 minutes left. It was going to be close. Behind us, from the direction of the collapsed site, we heard a sound. Deep, subsonic. Felt more than heard. A roar of frustration and rage, transmitted through the stone itself. The entity was angry. It was trapped, but it was aware. And it would remember us. Would remember the ones who buried it. Would wait with the infinite patience of stone for the day it could take revenge. We reached the extraction point as the Black Hawk flared for landing. Rotor wash kicked up dust and debris, but it was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. Civilization. Technology. Rescue. We loaded Santos onto the bird, medics immediately working on him, starting IVs, stabilizing his breathing. Ball, Chen, and I collapsed onto the bench seats, utterly spent. As we lifted off, I looked back at the valley. In the pre-dawn light, I could see the compound, see the crater where we'd buried something that shouldn't exist. And for just a moment, I swear I saw movement. A shifting in the rubble. A stone hand reaching up through the debris before falling back. Maybe imagination. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe the entity testing its prison, learning its confines, planning its eventual escape. Santos died 3 hours after we reached the field hospital at Bagram Air Base. Internal bleeding, collapsed lung, multiple organ damage from the impact. The doctors did everything they could, but some injuries are just too severe. Some damage can't be undone. He was 25 years old. Had a fiancée back in California. Parents in Arizona. A little sister who was starting college. He joined the military to pay for her education, to give her opportunities he'd never had. And he died in a cave in Afghanistan fighting something that wasn't supposed to exist. I sat with him at the end, held his hand while the machines beeped slower and slower until they went silent. His last words were barely a whisper. Did we stop it? Did we seal it? I told him yes. Told him he'd save lives. Told him he was a hero. I don't know if he believed me. I don't know if I believed me. But he needed to hear it, and I needed to say it. Then he was gone. Just like that. One moment a person, a life, a future. The next, just weight. Just mass. The thing that makes us human, whatever animates this meat we walk around in, it leaves. And what's left isn't the person anymore. It's just the shell they used to wear. The debriefing started 6 hours later. I was still covered in Santos's blood. Still had cave dust in my hair, under my fingernails, in the creases of my gear. But they didn't care. 2 men in suits, no names, no agency identification. Just, we're here to document what happened. Chen, Ball, and I sat in a secure room while they asked questions. Very specific questions. Questions that made it clear they already knew most of what we were going to say. Describe the structure you encountered, the first suit said. Mid-40s, gray at the temples, eyes that had seen things and learned not to react. Be specific about the architecture, the symbols, any technology you observed. I told them everything. The compound, the stone building that descended into the earth, the stairs, the chamber, the entity. Chen provided technical details about the inscriptions, the symbols, her assessment of the age and origin of the structure. Bull described the weapons we'd used, what worked, nothing, and what didn't, everything. The suits took notes, asked follow-up questions, showed us photographs of similar sites in other countries. Iraq, Syria, Peru, Antarctica. Dozens of locations, all with the same architectural style, all with the same warning symbols. All sealed. All marked as archaeological sites to prevent excavation. How long have you known about these things? Chen asked. How long has the government been aware that these entities exist? The second suit, younger, harder features, answered. Since 1943. Army Corps of Engineers found one in New Mexico while doing underground surveys for the Manhattan Project. Woke it up. Lost 47 men before they managed to rebury it. Every major nation has encountered them. The Soviets found 3 in Siberia. The Chinese have one sealed beneath Beijing. The British discovered one in Scotland in the 1800s and spent a century figuring out how to keep it dormant. We don't fully understand what they are or who made them. Pre-human is our best guess. Ancient beyond anything in recorded history. And they're all over the world. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Most still sleeping. Some awakened and resealed. A few completely lost, buried so deep we can't find them anymore. And Mashwani knew about the one in Korengal Valley, I said. It wasn't a question. He lured us there deliberately. Wanted us to wake it up. Why? The first suit pulled out a tablet, showed us intercepted communications. Pashto text, translated to English. Messages between Mashwani and his contacts in Pakistan, in Saudi Arabia, in cells across the Middle East. He'd been planning it for months. Research into ancient texts, interviews with local elders who remembered stories about the caves, satellite surveys to locate the exact position. He'd found references in pre-Islamic manuscripts, in records from Alexander's campaigns, in oral traditions passed down for millennia. And he developed a theory. He believed the entities were weapons, Jin said, reading the translations. Divine weapons left by Allah to be used against infidels in the final days. He thought if he could wake one, control it somehow, he could turn it against American forces. Use it to drive us out of Afghanistan. He was half right, the second suit said. They are weapons. Just not divine ones. We think they were created by a civilization that existed before modern humans evolved. A species or culture so advanced that what they left behind seems like magic to us. These entities were guardians, left to protect something. We don't know what. Every site we found has the same layout. A surface structure, a descent, a chamber, a sealed door. And behind the door, one of these things. Always alone. Always waiting. Protecting something deeper, something further down that we've never managed to access. Because anyone who tries to go past them dies, Bull said flatly. Exactly. The entities are the first line of defense. And they're effective. Conventional weapons don't work. Heat makes them stronger. They're tireless. They don't age. They can't be killed by any method we've discovered. The only solution is avoidance. Seal the sites, mark them as forbidden, and hope no one ever disturbs them again. But Mashwani disturbed it, I said. And now it's awake. Buried, but awake. What happens when it digs its way out? The suits exchanged glances. The first one sighed. That's why we're here. The site needs to be permanently sealed, not just buried. We're talking about a military operation. Bunker busters to collapse the entire cave system. Concrete poured into every crack and crevice. Steel reinforcement. Sensors to detect any movement. And then we classify the whole area as a restricted military zone. No access for civilians, no excavation, no tourism. We turn it into a black site and guard it forever. Forever is a long time, En said quietly. Not as long as these things live, the second suit replied. They were ancient when human civilization began. They'll be here after human civilization ends. All we can do is contain them, make sure they don't interfere with the current epoch, and hope that whatever they're protecting stays protected. The debriefing ended with the usual threats. This was classified above top secret. We would never speak about what we saw. If we wrote about it, published it, told friends or family, we'd face treason charges. Our careers would be destroyed. We'd spend the rest of our lives in military prisons. Standard protocol for encounters with things that couldn't officially exist. We signed the documents, accepted the classification, and became part of the secret. Another group of people who knew the truth and could never share it. But that wasn't the end. Not for me. The entity had gotten into my head. Literally. That voice, that presence, the feeling of something vast and ancient pressing against my consciousness. It hadn't left. Even after we'd escaped, even after we'd buried it, I could still feel it. In dreams. In moments of silence. A presence at the edge of awareness, watching, waiting, remembering. I started seeing symbols. Geometric patterns in the grain of wood, in the cracks in pavement, in the way shadows fell across walls. The same symbols that had covered the chamber walls. Mathematical equations that described reality in ways our physics couldn't explain. I'd close my eyes and see them, burning behind my eyelids. Open my eyes and see them overlaid on the real world, a second layer of reality visible only to me. Chun experienced it too. She'd be reading reports and suddenly see text that wasn't there. Ancient languages, scripts that predated Sumerian, messages written in the structure of reality itself. She'd translate them compulsively, filling notebooks with warnings and prophecies and mathematical proofs for impossible theorems. It's still in there, she told me during one of our unofficial meetings, the conversations we weren't supposed to have about events we weren't supposed to remember. The entity. It touched our minds when it spoke to us. Left a piece of itself behind. We're infected. Mark. And I think it can still see us. Still hear us. Still know where we are. Noah had nightmares. Every night. The same dream. He was back in the chamber, but this time he was alone. The entity was hunting him through corridors that shifted and changed, through spaces that violated geometry. And he could never escape. Could never hide. Because you can't hide from something that exists partially in your own mind. He started drinking to suppress the dreams. vodka, whiskey, anything that would knock him unconscious deeply enough that he didn't dream. But even drunk, even passed out, the entity was there, waiting. 3 months after the operation, Command sent us back to Korengal Valley. Different mission, different objective, but the same general area. I knew why. They wanted to see if we'd react. Wanted to test if the entity's influence had any geographical component. Would being near the site intensify the effects? Would we be drawn back to it? Would the entity somehow communicate with us through proximity? We were assigned to escort an engineering team doing surveys for a new forward operating base. Routine work, boring work, the kind of deployment that was supposed to be safe. But as we got closer to the valley, I felt it. The presence. Stronger now. No longer just at the edge of awareness but pressing forward, demanding attention. Like standing next to massive machinery that you can't see but can feel vibrating through your bones. Chin felt it too. It's calling us, she said. Not with sound. With will. It wants us to come back. Wants us to unseal it. It's been working on us for months, planting suggestions, building compulsion. Ghost, we need to stay away from that site. If we get too close, we might not be able to resist. But the mission took us within 2 kilometers of the sealed location. Close enough to see the mountain where we'd buried it. Close enough to feel the full weight of its attention. And that's when things got really strange. The engineering team's equipment started malfunctioning. GPS units showed incorrect positions, placing us miles from our actual location. Radio communications degraded into static. Vehicle engines died for no reason, then restarted spontaneously. One of the engineers, a civilian contractor from Georgia, started talking to himself. Having conversations with someone who wasn't there. Answering questions no one had asked. When we pulled him aside, asked what was wrong, he looked at us with eyes that weren't quite human anymore. It's awake, he said. It's been awake the whole time. And it's calling others. All across the world. All the guardians. Waking them up. Because you broke the protocol. You breached the seal. And now they're all rising. He died that night. Massive stroke, doctors said. Brain hemorrhage. But I saw his body before they bagged it. Saw the expression on his face. Terror. Absolute existential terror. The look of someone who'd seen beyond the veil, who'd glimpsed the true nature of reality and couldn't handle it. The look we'd all had in that cave, staring at something that shouldn't exist. We completed the mission. Escorted the engineers, did our jobs, extracted without further incident. But I knew the truth. The entity was spreading its influence, using us as vectors, as transmission points. Everyone we encountered, everyone we spoke to, everyone who got too close to us, they'd catch fragments of it, pieces of the presence, and some of them would be drawn back to sites like this, drawn to wake more guardians, to open more doors. The suits called me in again. Same room, same men, but this time their demeanor was different. Urgent. Concerned. It's spreading, the first suit confirmed. Not just at your site. We're seeing increased activity at sealed locations worldwide. Entities that have been dormant for decades showing signs of awareness. Sensors detecting movement. Local populations reporting dreams, visions, compulsions. Whatever you woke up in Korengal, it's networked with the others. And they're all responding. How many sites are showing activity? I asked. 47, the second suit said. And counting. Every sealed location we monitor. All of them activating simultaneously. It's coordinated. They're not individual entities. They're nodes in a network. A defense system. And we triggered it. What are they defending? Chen asked. What's so important that it requires immortal guardians and a global network? The suits didn't answer. Just showed us satellite imagery. Thermal scans of the Korengal site. The crater where we'd buried the entity. It showed a heat signature. Growing. Spreading. The entity was generating heat somehow, melting the rock around it, creating space, digging, not with physical force but with something else, molecular manipulation maybe, or matter conversion, turning solid stone into empty space through methods our science couldn't explain. How long before it reaches the surface? Bull asked. 3 weeks, the first suit said. Maybe 4. And when it emerges, it won't just resume guard duty. It'll hunt. Hunt the people who buried it. Hunt anyone associated with the breach. That means you 3. That means everyone at this base who had knowledge of the operation. That means potentially everyone who's touched the classified reports. These things don't forget, and they don't forgive. So what do we do? I asked. Run? Hide? Spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? We're planning a final solution, the second suit said. Something we've never tried before. We're going to nuke the site. Deep penetrator warhead, maximum yield. Vaporize the entire mountain. Turn the cave system into glass. Destroy the entity at the molecular level. You said heat makes them stronger, Chun objected. A nuclear weapon is pure heat. You'll just feed it. Make it invincible. We know, the first suit said. That's the problem. That's why it's a last resort. But we're out of options. If we do nothing, it escapes. If we try conventional weapons, it's futile. Nuclear is the only thing we haven't tested. Maybe the sheer scale of energy will overwhelm it. Maybe the radiation will disrupt whatever makes it function. Or maybe we'll just make the worst mistake in human history. But we have to try. They didn't tell us when. Didn't tell us the exact timeline. Just sent us back to our units, back to our deployments, back to pretending this was normal. That we hadn't encountered something that redefined everything we understood about history, about civilization, about our place in the universe. That we weren't marked. That we weren't infected. That we weren't carrying fragments of something ancient and hungry in our minds. 3 weeks later, I was at Forward Operating Base Salerno when the news came through. Unexplained seismic activity in Korengal Valley. Massive explosion deep underground. The official story was a Taliban weapons cache detonating accidentally. The real story was classified at levels that didn't have names. But I knew. They'd done it. They'd nuked the site, and I waited to see if it worked. If the entity was destroyed. If we were free. 2 days after the detonation, Chin called me on a secure line. It didn't work, she said, her voice flat. Dad, I can still feel it. It's not destroyed. It's not even weakened. The nuclear blast just cleared away the rubble, made it easier for it to emerge. Ghost, it's coming. And it's bringing others. The entire network is mobilizing. Every guardian, every entity, all of them converging on this region. They're coming to finish what they started, to punish us for the breach. I looked out at the mountains surrounding the FOB, jagged peaks against the night sky, and between them, I could see movement. Not physical movement, but something else. Distortions in reality. Spaces where light bent wrong, where geometry failed. The entities were coming, all of them. An army of stone and will and ancient purpose, coming to end the current epoch, coming to reset the board, coming to ensure that whatever they protected stayed protected. How long do we have? I asked Chen. Days, she said. Maybe hours. They're not moving through normal space. They're taking shortcuts, paths through reality that we can't perceive. When they arrive, when they breach the perimeter, it won't be a battle. It'll be an execution. Everyone at the base, everyone in the valley, everyone who knows what we found. They'll erase us, erase the evidence, make sure the secret stays secret. Then we run, I said. Get everyone out. Evacuate the valley. Clear the region. There's nowhere to run, Chen said quietly. They'll follow us. Across oceans. Across continents. To the ends of the earth if necessary. We touched what we shouldn't have touched, saw what we shouldn't have seen, and now we have to pay the price. The only question is whether we pay it alone or whether we drag everyone else down with us. I hung up and walked out into the night. The base was quiet, most personnel asleep or on watch. Normal operations, normal war. They had no idea what was coming, had no conception that something older and vastly more dangerous than Taliban insurgents was moving through the mountains toward their position. I could have raised the alarm, could have tried to evacuate, could have told them all to run for their lives. But what would I say? How would I explain? And would it even matter? If Chun was right, if there was no escape, then panic would only make the end worse. So I did what soldiers do. I waited, checked my weapon, made sure my gear was ready, said silent goodbyes to people who'd never know why, and watched the mountains, watched the spaces between the peaks where reality bent, where ancient things that couldn't die were gathering, where an intelligence so vast and patient that human lifetimes were nothing to it was preparing to correct a mistake, to seal a breach, to ensure that what must not be found remained lost. The night was cold and clear. Stars overhead, the same stars humans have watched for 100,000 years. The same stars that shone when whatever made the entities was building its network. The same stars that would shine long after humans were gone, after our cities were dust, after our civilization was forgotten. We're temporary, brief sparks of consciousness in an ancient universe. And sometimes, when we dig too deep, when we go too far, we find evidence of that truth. Find proof that we're not the first, not the most advanced, not the apex of anything except our own arrogance. I never wrote any of this in an official report, never submitted it for review. But I'm writing it now because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand what's out there. What's buried beneath mountains and deserts and frozen tundra. What's waiting in the dark places of the world for someone to make the same mistake we made, to open the same doors, to wake the same guardians. If you're reading this, if you're military or intelligence or just someone curious about classified operations, learn from what happened to us. Learn that some places are sealed for good reasons, that some warnings should be heeded, that when every ancient civilization across all of human history says, "Don't go here," maybe they knew something we don't. The entities are real. They're still there, still guarding, still waiting, and they don't forget. The one we woke in Korengal Valley is still coming, still hunting, still executing its ancient programming. And all I can do is wait. Wait and watch the mountains. Wait and feel that presence growing stronger. Wait for the night when the stars go dark and stone walks and an intelligence that predates humanity decides our time is over. Santos died believing we'd stopped it, believing his sacrifice meant something. I hope he was right. I hope somehow, against all evidence and logic, we did seal it, did protect people, did make a difference. But I don't think we did. I think we just delayed the inevitable, pushed the problem forward for someone else to face. And that's the real horror. Not that these things exist, but that we can't stop them, can't contain them, can only hope they stay asleep and that no one else makes the mistake of waking them. If you ever find yourself in Afghanistan, in the Korengal Valley or anywhere near it, stay away from the caves. Stay away from the mountains. And if you see symbols carved into stone, if you hear voices in your mind, if you feel something vast and ancient watching you, run. Don't investigate. Don't try to understand. Just run. Because some knowledge isn't worth having. Some truths are better left buried. And some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. We should have stayed away. We should have listened to the warnings. We should have sealed it and left. But we didn't. And now the price is coming due. The entities are waking. All of them. Across the world. And when they fully emerge, when they decide humanity has become too curious, too dangerous, too close to finding what they protect, they'll act. They'll execute their purpose. And 1,000,000 years from now, When the next intelligent species rises, when they dig in the places we leave behind, they'll find the entities. Still there, still waiting, still guarding. And maybe they'll be smarter than us. Maybe they'll recognize the warnings for what they are. Maybe they won't make the same mistake. Or maybe they will. Because curiosity is what intelligence does. Questions are what conscious minds ask. And the search for answers is what drives every species that learns to think. It's what makes us human. And it's what will destroy us. The mountains are calling. The stone is moving. The guardians are rising. And I'm still here, still waiting, still marked by contact with something that should never have been disturbed. Stay away from the caves.